Hi, Dale Titus here, 2-Minute Bass Lessons. I got a great email from a player who's just wondering, he's on the beginning of his journey of learning the instrument, and he's having problems with muting the strings. And I know exactly what he's talking about. Most players, when they, and I was one of them, when you first start playing, you're plucking the string. Let's say you're trying to play a scale, and you pluck with your, like in a certain way where the string rings, and then you go to play another note, and they blend together. And you have to practice several ways to get that first note, most of the time, to stop, so each note's individual. And this is really prevalent on open strings because you don't have any left-hand control. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways you can mute strings. And you can find which one works best for which situation. Initially, let's talk about your right hand plucking. And I apologize if the camera angle is not ideal. But a lot of guys, when they first start playing, they hook the string. And maybe they're afraid of touching the next string. But really, when you're playing with your fingers, one of the things you want to do is, if I'm playing the G string, I stroke the string, but I let my finger touch the D string. That keeps the D string quiet from rumbling and making noise. And that's really, I think, preferred. Let's say if I'm playing the A string, instead of hooking it, where the string can ring and I might hit this string accidentally, I just go ahead and pluck through and stop the E string from just even sympathetically vibrating. So that's one way, is to look if your right hand is going, is passing through the string and touching the next string. And that's actually, I think, preferred. The other thing you can do to keep, if you're getting a lot of rumble when you're playing, is, most of us might rest our thumb on a pickup, or on some people on the edge of the fingerboard, and some people have actual thumb rests. A lot of times, and you might have noticed this on previous videos, when I'm playing, I'll actually drop my thumb down onto the E string, so that if I'm playing the higher strings, this doesn't start just sympathetically rumbling and making a low hum throughout my playing. Likewise, if I'm really playing a lot on the D and the G string, I might actually even put my thumb on the A string, rest the side of it on the E string as I'm playing. And that just makes sure these stay really quiet. Some people call that the floating thumb or the movable thumb technique. I don't really have a name for it, but it did clean up my right hand. Now you have a bunch of choices for muting with the left hand. One way is, if I play a note and I want it to stop, I can just release the pressure. As soon as now I don't want to get my thumb off, or my finger off, because it actually sounds another note, or a noise actually. But I'll just release the pressure enough that it stops the noise from happening, the sound from happening. So that's one way. As you're playing, you might want to practice like holding the sustain of the note and then releasing, or doing it short, where you're actually kind of flexing your hand on the fingerboard. The other thing I like to do is, if I'm playing along and I'm noticing this, maybe I'm playing on the D string and the A string's kind of rumbling or it's making some noise, I'll actually play with the flat of my pad on the note I'm sounding, but push my fingertip into the next string. Then it doesn't really sympathetically vibrate. I mean, if you pluck on it, you'll get a noise, but it's pretty quiet. There's other ways to mute strings, and it's all dependent on when the strings are getting in your way, when the notes are like bleeding through. Sometimes I'll let the side of my finger rest on all the strings. Even if I'm like playing on the G on the E string, you notice instead of coming down with perfect classical technique, if I just maybe played upper strings that are still ringing, I'll just lower my finger down so that it actually touches. I know you can't really see that, but I'll lower my finger down so it rests on all the strings. That'll keep those strings quiet. It's really impossible for me to give you techniques for every possible opportunity that you could have some noisy strings, or notes ringing through when you want them silenced. So you can actually detective this yourself and kind of put on your sleuthing hat and figure this out yourself. Let's say it's a bass line from a song and two of the notes are bleeding. You can actually just slow it down and find the mechanic that's leaving that note that you want quiet. What's absent? Why is it still ringing? Now sometimes you can mute it with your right hand, by, like I talked about, by plucking through the string and hitting the next string. Sometimes you can mute it by, even if I'm like fretting with my index finger and I want to quiet these notes, you might see me lower my pinky down to quiet the D and the G string. And I'm just muting. I'm not pushing hard enough to make a sound or anything. So you're going to have to do a little of the investigation on your own. But if there is a specific bass line that you're having problems with your muting, if it's possible, videotape it and email it to me at dalet@dannybegoodz.com. And I would love to actually highlight it and feature it in a future lesson. So that's some of my ideas on how to clean up your technique and make it sound a little better. Again, it's probably just scratching the surface, because every slapping has different rules, tapping has different rules. So if I missed the mark on this, please email me back and give me a little more definition. But that's some of my ideas on how to mute noisy strings and how to clean up my technique. So if you have any questions like that, please email me at dalet@dannybegoodz.com. Thanks a lot.